Welcome to the Daily Faceoff Show, your everyday source for the latest news with top-notch insight and analysis. Live every weekday at noon Eastern.
Welcome in. It is a March 28th edition of the Daily Faceoff Show. Yaremchuk and Mike McKenna with you to recap a weekend of action around the NHL. But first, Mike, you got the Cardinals cap on, and you are beaming. You're fired up that Albert Pujols is back with the Cards.
Oh, dude, can you believe it? Like, he was a villain when he left St. Louis 10 seasons ago. I think it's been for greener pastures in California. Now he's repatriating back to the gateway city. I don't watch a ton of baseball, but this is pretty cool. I'm a sucker for comeback stories and things coming full circle, Tyler. So I had to rock Cards hat today, man. Just make an exception for it.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I'm a big baseball guy, so I'm fired up for opening day, which is coming up in a few weeks. But let's stick with the hockey here and throw 2 minutes and 30 seconds up on the clock and start with one of the more entertaining, if not the most entertaining game of the weekend around the NHL. It was the Minnesota Wild going up against the Colorado Avalanche, a game that had essentially 3 lead changes. Ryan Hartman ties things up with 6.5 minutes to go. Mike, the Wild get the win in OT. Cam Talbot makes 40 saves. Was this game, is this enough to convince you that the Wild are a legitimate contender to take down the Avalanche in that division?
I think that they've had every opportunity to be the team to do so. And the more I talk to friends around the league, they all seem to think it's not just Calgary that could take out Colorado. Minnesota's got a really good chance as well. And you could see the intensity from the very start of this game. There were scrums after almost every whistle, huge hits. Matt Dumba lays out Rantanen. And guess who comes to Rantanen's aid? Nathan MacKinnon. When the captain is out of your lineup, Landeskog for Colorado, you're looking for leadership. MacKinnon steps up. That was a big moment. But this game had everything. The drama, the suspense, the passion, the intensity. There were 35 hits for both of these teams. And for Minnesota to stay in this game, not let Colorado run away with it when they had chances to. Some huge saves by Cam Talbot. And by the way, I think that's the top goaltending tandem in the league now between Cam Talbot and Marc-Andre Fleury. Good luck getting past that duo in playoffs. And I just think, Tyler, this game was playoffs, man. You see some of these other ones, we're going to talk about one in a little bit later here that wasn't like this. It didn't have this intensity. Zuccarello, phenomenal, his vision. So I think that Minnesota's for real, Tyler. I think they could easily play a big factor in the playoffs. Cam Talbot's won 7 straight games. Minnesota's looking pretty good right now.
Yeah, they're looking fantastic. The shots in that game, though, they were 42-29 for Colorado, although sometimes that can be a bit of a deceiving number when you're looking at it on sort of a one-game basis. Colorado, like you said, they are missing Landeskog, though, so that's a boost they're going to get come playoff time. But you talked about the goaltending, the best duo in the league in Talbot and Fleury. And Fleury had his first win with the Wild over the last couple of days as well. And, Landeskog coming back, I think, would give the Avalanche the boost. And I would like if this was the second round matchup if we get mini Colorado, I wouldn't be picking Minnesota to win, but I certainly wouldn't be picking a Colorado sweep or a Colorado win in 5 games either. Because really, Mike, we've seen it time and time again in the playoffs. When you have the goaltending and you have a lineup that's capable of playing physical and intense like Minnesota does, anything's possible.
Absolutely. I mean, it just has shades of the first round last year when it was the Wild against the Golden Knights. That series went to 7 games. Minnesota gave Vegas everything they could handle. Vegas ended up knocking off Colorado in 6 just after that. So I like Minnesota. Their game should continue to grow. And like you said, Colorado's got a bit of room as well. But that was a great game. Really entertaining.
That was a great game. Another game that was entertaining was between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Detroit Red Wings. Entertaining for the complete opposite reasons. It was not a great hockey game. It was the Penguins just absolutely stomping the Wings, putting up 11 goals. And look at some of these numbers we got from this recent run from the Wings, because it has been a rough stretch for that Detroit team, starting with the fact that they've now allowed 10 plus goals in a game twice this year. No other teams allowed that yet at all. There's only been 2 times where a team's allowed 10 plus goals. The Wings are both of them. There's been 3 games now where the Wings have allowed 9 more. Only 6 times that's happened all year. The Wings are half of that, and all 3 of those have happened in the last 31 days as well. Detroit, they've allowed 6 plus goals 6 times in the last 31 days. Since February 26th, they're allowing over 5 goals per game. Second worst in the NHL in that span is Anaheim with 4 goals against per game. It's just a terrible run. We'll get to Pittsburgh in a second, but starting with Detroit, Mike, this team they look lost right now.
They do. I mean, their captain, Dylan Larkin, after the game said, "We've got to find our identity. We cannot keep doing this." Well, they needed to find it about a month and a half ago. I mean, I thought midway through the season, Detroit might actually be able to make a push for playoffs. And that's just, that's the furthest thing from the thought process now at this point. And we saw the rare double goalie pull last night where Nedeljkovic started. He gets pulled. Pickard comes in. Nedeljkovic back in. If you want to lay this only on the goaltending in Detroit, you're sorely wrong, because they are not protecting the house whatsoever. They're giving up odd man rushes against. They're just disjointed, and they're not playing hard enough. Detroit only blocked 8 shots last night. Like, if you want an indicator of what your team is thinking mentally, there's one right now. Where's the buy-in? They have got to be better. I just think that this club in Detroit really should be ahead of where they are, especially given their talent. It's surprising to see them go on this type of journey, man, in the wrong direction. They are better than this. And I think that's exactly what Dylan Larkin was trying to say after the game.
Yeah, and part of me wonders if there's maybe a bit of a disconnect here between the coaching staff, maybe some of the young guys on this team. Flipping to the other side of this, hey, Pittsburgh scored 11 in this hockey game. They had 9 different goal scorers as well. Rickard Rakell seems to be fitting in like a glove on this Pittsburgh lineup. If you're another team in the East, you're probably looking at this top 9 in Pittsburgh and gulping a little bit, going, hey, they're going to be a handful down the stretch here.
Yeah, I actually have Pittsburgh going to the Stanley Cup Finals. And part of that's because I just like to pick underdogs, but I really like the way this team is constructed. They've been consistent all season long, but this game last night was really kind of a classic bounce back game. They just gotten beat by the Rangers 5-1 2 nights before. They were sitting, they were waiting, and Detroit had played the previous night. And they started Nedeljkovic in that game against the night before on the road to Tampa Bay. Then they ran him back again the next night. So this was set up for Pittsburgh to have success, but I love their killer instinct, Tyler. Like, they didn't let off the gas here at all. Like, this was a statement. And sometimes it's easy when you get up 6 goals to just totally quit. Detroit pops 2, and it was kind of like the Penguins realized, all right, we're not done here. Let's get this thing going. Malkin, Letang, both of them phenomenal. Malkin had a hat trick. Pittsburgh looks good, man. I think that they're a sleeper pick in the East.
Another guy that's looking good right now is Roman Josi, and what a month the Predators defenseman has been having. We'll get to the awards talk in just a second here, but how about some of these numbers from Josi? Since March 1st, he's first in the NHL with 28 points. Among the players who have played at least 10 games, only he and Patrick Kane are averaging 2 points a game in the month of March. Josi now up to 81 points on the season in 64 games played. He's on pace for 101 points. Reason why he's on such a high pace has just been this absolutely historic month of March as well. I mean, for points by a defenseman in a single month, this guy is on the verge of breaking the record. And it's a bit of like a weird sort of nitpicky stat we're looking at here for most points in 1 month by a defenseman. But when your name's up there with Paul Coffey and Bobby Orr, and you still have a couple more games to go this month, that speaks volumes to the kind of run that you're on. He's 2 points away from passing Brent Burns for the most points by a defenseman in a season in the salary cap era. And if he can get to 90 points, Mike, he would be the first D-man since Ray Bourque in 93-94 to put up 90 points in a single season. But the 100-point mark is not out of the question here. We thought it was just Cale Makar's Norris to lose for a while here. Is this run by Josi changing your mind on the Norris Trophy race?
Yeah, just give it to Josi. Like, dude, I didn't think anybody could touch Cale Makar this season. He was my runaway. He was my horse. I've said that at times I think Cale Makar might be the best player in the league. And that's flipping a lot of my statements on its head right now, considering what Yosi's done. 13-game point streak. And, like, it's not a fluke that your name is included with Bobby Orr and Paul Coffey when you put those numbers up. This isn't a one-off. I mean, Yosi's a previous Norris Trophy winner. He's the Swiss cyborg, dude. Watch this guy skate. Watch him possess the puck and his vision. Early in the season, it was really his power play time that was driving his points, I thought. But the 5-on-5 play of Josi in the last several months, I mean, since All-Star break, he's got 27 points in 21 games, just 5-on-5. And he's been a key part, Tyler, to re-energizing Matt Duchene. They've found a click this year along with Forsberg. Matt Duchene has 20 points, 5-on-5 since the All-Star break. A lot of that is due to Roman Josi. And I think the reason why you got to look for Josi towards not just the Norris, Tyler, I think even the Hart at this point.
Yeah.
The reason being, Cale Makar, Adam Fox, Hedberg, and Tampa. Those teams are all in the playoffs solidly, even without those three. I don't think Nashville's there without Roman Josi. You can lump UC Saros in as well, but Josi, has carried this Predators team this year. This is incredible. This is historic what we're watching. He's the Norris
It is.
frontrunner for me, Tyler, like unquestionably.
Yeah, I think it'll be tight between he and Makar, but the recency bias probably does push Josi into the driver's seat here. And I agree with you. Like, he's been unreal. The Hart Trophy talk is deserved, in my opinion, as well. He's 14 points ahead of second place on their team. And he's a defenseman. And it's not like he's a purely offensive defenseman. You mentioned it. This is a guy that's won a Norris Trophy before, and now he's got these insane numbers to go with it. He's going to be in the Hart Trophy conversation right up until the end of the season. And like you said, it's incredibly deserved for Josi. Switching gears a little bit, we're going to be joined by Frank Seravalli in a few minutes. He is live in Florida at the GM meetings. But before we get to that, Mike, I figured we'd throw around, maybe if we had the stage at the GM meetings, what would we want to maybe pitch out to change around the NHL? So I'll give the floor to you here to give sort of your first ideas on what would you present to the GMs that could better the league.
Well, I still think that we need a permanent third goalie instead of the e-bug system. I'd like to see that implemented. I wrote a piece on Daily Faceoff earlier this year that outlined parameters, but I think something that's actually feasible would be to just go to pond hockey in overtime. Get rid of the red line, get rid of the blue line, no icing, no offside, just 3-on-3, drop the puck and see what happens. Like, if you're a team that's desperate for a win or points, who's to say that you don't just fly the zone and send a guy to the far end and throw Hail Marys and hope? Would that not be exciting? Goalie makes a save. Chuck one back the other direction. Imagine watching Mike Smith in overtime when there's no lines on the ice. I'm telling you, man, the chaos factor might be a little high, but we've already crossed this bridge. We put a shootout into the game. We went to 3-on-3. Why do we have lines on the ice? Just open it up, man. I guarantee more games would end with hockey being played instead of shootouts if we went to pond hockey. What do you have, Tyler?
Yeah, I want to touch on that idea too, because I really like it. Like, I remember the first year 3-on-3 was around, and it was probably, you could argue, more entertaining than it is now. And a lot of people said, you just wait. There are coaches who will suck the life out of this thing. And I think that's maybe happened a little bit here. You see a lot of teams now not afraid to just regroup back and just play the puck possession game and wind down the clock until they get that perfect scoring chance. And I love your point that, hey, open it up. It might be weird, but 3-on-3 is weird. The shootout is weird. And we've had that for a long time now. Why not just completely blow it open? For me, I would push really hard for the 3-2-1 point system. I know the league has never really been firmly on board with this. Frank Seravalli gave his point on this on the DFO rundown earlier today. You can listen to that wherever you get your podcast from. But I'm with Frank on this. I think there's just too many teams when you look at the standings who have racked up 10, 11, 12 sort of 1-point losses. And I get it. I'm cool with having a loser point to some extent, but I think going with 3 wins for a regulation loss will really allow the good teams to show a little bit more in the standings. And the other thing too, Mike, is if it was 3 points for a regulation win, I think playoff races would be tighter right up until the end of the season as well.
Yeah, those models are always interesting to look at. I am not a stathlete. I can tell you that with full certainty. But any incentive you can find to get a team to try to play a little bit harder, to gain some more points, that wouldn't be bad. But I do look at those points that teams gain, and even in overtime losses, shootout losses, and I look at those and I think, you know what? Those teams that have at least been in the games, they've been close. They've been able to get points. There's value in that, but you're right. It could create some separation if you did it otherwise.
Yeah, and I suppose maybe my beef, like, I like having the 1 point for an OT loss. Maybe my problem is valuing a team winning in the shootout the same as valuing them the same as when they win in the first 60 minutes, right? But a conversation for another day, I suppose. Let's get into what actually is going down in Florida, or going on down in Florida, with Frank Seravalli and another edition of Icebreakers. Excited to have Froll. Look at that setup. The sun is shining. He's on the balcony. Frank Seravalli is absolutely living his best life right now. It's another edition of Icebreakers delivered by DoorDash. Frank, last week you were the first one to report on the idea that the LTIR and that loophole will be brought up at the GM meetings. Now that we're there and the GM meetings are going to begin this week, what would you say is the appetite for change, and what can you tell us about maybe what's going to be discussed in regards to the LTIR?
Yeah, I think, guys, what I'm most interested or surprised in has been the appetite from other managers. I wasn't sure how small the group was, how many guys would actually be pushing for change. And I think it's actually quite large. Almost a third of the league's GMs, maybe almost half, are saying, look, there's something that's just a little bit off here. Maybe we can tighten this up just a little bit to create a more level playing field. And so that's certainly one of the things that they're discussing today is, first off, let's take the temperature and understand who exactly is in favor of making a change. Is the NHL head office interested in making a change? And I believe that at the end of the day, Gary Bettman and Bill Daly are both interested in seeing this shored up or closed up a little bit so that no team has an advantage if they end up coming down with an injury to get a guy back late in the playoffs or in the playoffs when things matter most. But the other part of it is the fix. I think it's a pretty easy fix. We talked about it last week, the idea of instituting sort of a playoff cap. Your guys that you ice on the ice that night in the Stanley Cup playoffs, they must be under $81.5 million or whatever that year's cap is. It's an easy thing to institute. The hard thing is, how do you get to the NHL Players Association where you can get the sort of buy-in? Because this is, if it were to get to that point where the NHL would like to make a change, it's a material change to the collective bargaining agreement, and it's something that they would have to agree with in the NHL Players Association in order to have something like this take place. What's the players' appetite for this? They haven't taken the players' temperature on it. And then what would the NHL have to give up in return? It's kind of a complicated mess. And so I think when it all comes down to it, I'm wondering if we will actually see any change come out of it. I think I'm leaning towards less likely than likely, but coming down here, engaging in conversation with a number of managers over the last 24 hours, I was surprised how many of them are in favor of making a change.
Frank, I got to tell you, if we come back on tomorrow and you're not sitting in that seat directly behind you, just swinging along in the breeze talking to us, I'm going to be very, very disappointed. But let's talk about gameplay, okay? Is there anything that the GMs are looking at and they're thinking, you know what, we've got some gray areas that maybe we could tighten up, or things that we could eliminate from the actual play on the ice itself?
First off, I don't know that there's enough weight in that thing over there to support me from dangling on anything. Second, I would say that when it comes to some little nuances in play, there are a few things on the agenda to be talked about. There's always the coach's challenge will get review. The Department of Player Safety will get some review. But Mike, one thing that you hit on a couple weeks ago on the Daily Faceoff show that I absolutely loved was this idea of teams gaming the long change, particularly in overtime. Player in one door, out the other. I know you said it's maybe an old St. Lawrence trick, something like that.
The Chiseler play.
I don't know if you guys have the Chiseler. I don't know if you have it queued up or not, Alex. But if not, you know, it was something that popped up in an Anaheim game recently that I think a number of GMs were like, hey, I don't quite like the look of that. Let's see if we could maybe cut that out. So I'm a fan of the Chiseler. You ain't cheating. You ain't trying. If you're not getting as close to the line as possible, Mike, you said this before. It's a big thing in racing. If you're not right up against that line looking for every edge, every percentage point possible, you're not doing it right. So that's one of the other things that they're going to talk about among some other things.
Frank, let's for the third one here, let's just empty the notebook kind of. Is there anything else you're keeping an eye on? Anything you're hearing about down in Florida that is at the top of your mind right now?
Well, we talked a lot about last week about the idea of does there need to be some sort of change after the Evgeny Dodonov trade was voided with regards to no trade lists. And I think there is a bit of an appetite from the league's perspective and probably also from the NHL Players Association to, hey, let's not get ourselves in a situation again like that where we have a player that's dangling out there for a while and frankly a team that's uncertain. Let's see if we can have a centralized database, probably with Central Registry or someone at the NHL that keeps track of these no trade lists so that it doesn't come up again. I think there's certainly an appetite for that, and that's something that will be discussed, as well as some updates from the NHL Alumni Association, USA Hockey, and in addition to that, Kim Davis will also be speaking to the NHL general managers, the senior vice president for diversity and inclusion, and a ton of different things that are added to her title that I can't, it's like a 13-word title. So she'll be talking to the GMs as well about the program that was in place starting in March, the Respect Group with Sheldon Kennedy, that for whatever reason, the specific training wasn't specific enough, and they are going to institute that next season as opposed to March, but the GMs will be getting an update on that and all that comes with that. And I'm hoping some other interesting little things pop up here, guys, over the next 24 to 48 hours here in Florida. You never know. Sometimes these GMs get in a room, they bat around an idea, and something comes out of it that you weren't quite expecting.
Perfect. Well, we will be getting another update from you exactly 24 hours from now. Another edition of Icebreakers coming tomorrow on the show. That's going to do it for today's version, though. And as always, it's delivered by our friends at DoorDash. Those promo codes at the bottom, DFODD and DFODDUS, get you 25% off and no delivery fees on your first order. Frank, I know you're ordering some DoorDash today. You're living that good hotel life. So enjoy, and we'll chat with you again tomorrow on another edition of Icebreakers. Let's get to our daily face-off inbox question, hashtag AskDFO, and I'm chuckling just reading the line we have here. Ever smack a man? I mean, it's all the internet's talking about today is the Will Smith slap on Chris Rock last night at the Oscars. So, Mike, the question, the AskDFO inbox question, have you ever slapped a man?
Yes. And it was a teammate of mine. When we were playing for the Norfolk Admirals of the American Hockey League, when we were affiliated with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and it was teammate Blair Jones. And we were at a karaoke bar in Providence, Rhode Island. Zenon Konopka was at our table. We'd shared a bottle of red. It'd been a good evening. Jay Rosehill was up on stage singing Meatloaf songs. Unbelievable karaoke singer. But Jonesy just kept pressing my buttons, man. Like playfully, you know what I mean? It wasn't like he was being malicious, but I was eventually got to the point I was like, Jonesy, I'm going to slap you in public if you keep this up. So I warned him. I told him straight up, like, I'm going to slap you. And he just kept needling. And he did it again and again. And I finally just, what did the 5 fingers say to the face? Slap! Like, smacked him in public in the middle of the bar. And Konopka's roaring laughing. I didn't really know what was going to happen next. I wasn't sure if he was going to attack me, but thankfully Jonesy saw the humor in it and realized that I had warned him. And that was that. That was like it. He didn't say anything else the rest of the night. But I'll never forget it because I slapped a man in public and I was very proud of it, Tyler. I mean, have you taken part in this as well? I mean, I'm just dying to hear some wild college story when you just hauled off on somebody at a pizza joint. Please tell me you've got something like that.
I have nothing. I'm not a very violent person. No, like I've never been in a fight or anything like that. I've never been forced to slap or hit anyone. Yeah, I really wish I did have a better story for you because yours is fantastic. I mean, how many people are out here throwing hands at a karaoke bar? It's great. But what I did do to bring some sort of value to the show today is I dug around social media a little bit and I did find some of my favorite moments from the Twitter sphere. How about this one from Arda? Will Smith won an Oscar and got into a fight. He's an assist away from the Gordie Howe hat trick. We had a couple other ones here. One from our friend Dan Gallant, who runs hockeyfights.com, and he very fittingly put the slap, I should say, up on hockeyfights.com and into the template as well. So great stuff from our boy, the Danalytic. And then we got this one. I mean, come on. Kevin Weeks was breaking trades from everywhere leading up to the deadline, so it would make sense that he would also be on stage here at the Oscars to let us know what's happening. And our producer, Alex, also put together a nice little video here with an NHL comparable for the moment. Do we have that, Alex? Oh, yeah, we do. Will Smith strutting up on stage, and then bang! Just like Austin Matthews on Rasmus Dahlin, a quick shot to the head as well. So if it was in their jurisdiction, I'm sure the NHL's Department of Player Safety would be taking a look at this play from Will Smith. But let's, this one as well. Yes, Alex really wanted us to show this one. This was producer Alex's favorite moment, Will Smith's publicist at the end of the Oscars, and then the clip from Men in Black as well. So good stuff. It's always good fun on social media when these viral clips sort of come down the pipe. It's great being on social media on Twitter, Mike, in like the hour that these things happen, because you see all the first little bits and all the good jokes that are coming out.
And it just gets better and better as it goes until it finally reaches the point of maximum saturation. It becomes old news. But it's almost like, I remember when the Chappelle Show would come out when you were in college before YouTube or anything else, and the whole campus would be walking around going, yeah, oh, what? And because we'd all just watched it. And then it got to the point it was so annoying you just had to tell people to be quiet after 2 or 3 days. But the cycle of memes and viral stuff on the web is always entertaining, man. I'm here for it.
All right, let's get to our daily bet segment brought to you by our friends at PointsBet Canada. I had a really good week last week, actually, so let's hope to keep that rolling here. And I'm going to start with something I've been doing a lot recently, and it's been working a lot recently, and it's taken 2 favorites, parlaying them to win in regulation. We'll start with the matchup at the bottom, actually, in the LA Kings, who are 2-0-1 on this current homestand, and they just beat Seattle 4-2 on Saturday down in LA. So I like LA to do it again. They're in the middle of a playoff race. They're playing desperate hockey. Seattle's just 9-21-3 on the road so far this season. So taking the LA Kings in regulation, it's about -130, and combining that with the Oilers to beat the Coyotes in regulation, which is about -216. That parlay gets you to about +150 from the Edmonton side of this. They got embarrassed on Saturday night against their provincial rivals in Calgary. And something Frank Seravalli's talked to me about is you never want to bet against a team that just got embarrassed. And the Oilers returned to home ice where they've won 6 in a row. They're taking on a Coyotes team that's playing their 3rd game in 4 nights, 2nd of back-to-backs, and they were just in Winnipeg last night as well. So they had a bit of travel here. They've lost both their games on this road trip. Edmonton's a fantastic home bet. They should win in regulation. I like LA as well, parlaying them for +150. And for my player prop, we are sticking with that Oilers matchup, and I am pushing all my chips into the middle on Connor McDavid tonight in this hockey game. It's not a bad guy to bet on here. You really don't want to bet against Connor McDavid, certainly, but he's just been doing nothing but put up multi-point games. It's about -110 for him to get multiple points and -117 for him to score a goal. He actually hasn't scored in 4 games, even though he's been racking up all the assists. I don't think McDavid goes 5 games without a goal, so I'm throwing a unit on McDavid to score, a unit on McDavid to go over 1.5 tonight, and then we got the Edmonton-LA parlay at +150. So 3 total bets tonight on a Monday night in the NHL as I look to keep the hot streak going, and we will wrap up the show with a little garbage time. Mike, what do you got?
Well, nice moment last night in Pittsburgh. After warm-ups, the TV crew was able to catch a really nice interaction between a young fan named Bryson. And if you look close enough, you can see the hashtag Bryson Strong. He is a cancer survivor. He has beaten it. And he asked for a picture with some of the players to celebrate. You can see Casey DeSmith coming over, takes a picture with Bryson. And then the coolest moment for me, fellow cancer survivor Brian Boyle comes over to greet Bryson, gives him a puck. Just really good. And then after the game was over, of course, the Penguins stomped Detroit. So naturally, they were 3 stars of the game. I believe it was Evgeny Malkin gave Bryson a stick as well. Just one of those really cool moments and interactions that happens pretty naturally in our game. And it's nice to see the players embrace it.
Yeah, it's great to see that. We had the moment, obviously, in Edmonton last week that went viral with Ben Stelter. And it's great to see things getting back to normal in relation to the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And these are some of those things that we really didn't get over the last 2 years that, in my opinion, really remind you kind of what sports is all about and what sports can do when it's done right. And this is certainly an example of that. And the interaction between fans, just always fantastic when it's for stuff like this.
It's pure. It's wholesome. It's pure. And you make a great point, Tyler. I love that when I played. I love being able to meet all the kids, give them a stick, make them smile. That's a huge part of our job. It's been missing for the players, and now it's finally starting to come back. Great point.
There we go. That's going to do it for another edition of the Daily Faceoff Show. We're going to run it back. We're going to do it again tomorrow. Mike will be back. I'll be back. And our boy Frank Seravalli will be live from Florida. So keep it locked on Daily Faceoff in the meantime. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.
Thanks for watching the Daily Faceoff Show.
Make sure you hit subscribe on our YouTube channel to never miss an episode.